Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, everybody. I am here today with Draft Professor Steve and Taylor. We're going to be diving into some running backs here in a few minutes. Taylor, it has been a full 7 days since you and I have spoke. How are you feeling this fine Thursday evening?
I am feeling good. Ready to talk some running backs. It's finally draft season for real, unless you're a Patriots or a Seahawks fan. But for everyone else out there, do the mock drafts. Start looking at the positions because it's coming quick. Senior Bowl on Saturday. So,
okay, and we have a Senior Bowl podcast starting at 9, but that's probably the talk of the town. So, Steve, what is your overall summation of the Senior Bowl as the last practice winds down as we start this podcast?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I got to give a shout out to the dozen or so draft professors that are, boots on the ground there. And whether it's Twitter or here on the podcast, I think they're all doing a fantastic job of helping those of us that aren't there feel like they are, no matter who it is, whether it's Anthony Rizzo or Dom or the list goes on and on of draft professors that are there that are just, giving great insight and keeping us in the loop.
Cool. And we will have, like I said, a special Senior Bowl Standouts podcast starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 2 hours from now. This podcast specifically, we're here every Thursday. Chaw, Steve, myself. You might see a few guests pop in and out. We're here every Thursday at 7. Today, Steve and Chaw are going to discuss their running back boards. So, Chaw, I'm going to start with just a simple question. How many running backs do you think are going to be drafted on day 1 or day 2?
Day 1 or day 2, I could see up to... I see 5 on my list that I have going on day 1 or day 2. So first 3 rounds, about give or take top 100 players, and I have 5 of them in my category. Steve, I think you also have 5?
Yeah, 5 in my top 100. Yep.
I don't believe we have the same 5, though, so that's where the fun begins.
That's right. We do not.
So, Taylor, who's at the top of that list of 5 for you?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory this year. We do have a bit of a teardrop from running back 1 to running back 2. I think, some people might try to do a hot take or something and make Jeremiah Love not number 1 as we go through the draft process. It happens every single year, right? We move on. It gets to February. We're bored. The combine comes around. Next thing you know, Jeremiah Love, actually the 3rd best running back in the class. Not the case. He's number 1, pretty clear and above. But my number 2 and number 3 are pretty close together, and that's Emmett Johnson from Nebraska and Nick Singleton from Penn State, who are 2 guys that Steve does not have inside his top 5. So I'm curious from Steve to hear what his thoughts on those 2 are and why he doesn't have them inside the top 5 when I have them 2 and 3.
Yeah, so the only one that I really differ, I have him just outside my top 100 is Nick Singleton of Penn State. But, obviously we both have Jeremiah Love at number 1. In full disclosure, when I started really getting into it after the first quarter of the season, I was actually a little higher for a short while on Jonah Coleman of Washington. And there were some of the draft professors like Randall Slifer. I know he had him at number 1. I don't know if that has changed or not. We haven't talked about it. But, as I've said to Chaw backstage or offline, I really like Emmett Johnson of Nebraska. There are other guys, also that I like. I just can't quit Coleman. So Love is my number 1. He is a top 5 player in this class for me. I have Jonah Coleman as my only other running back in my top 50. And then from there, the other 3 are, like we said, a few minutes ago, they're in my top 100, but they're also in my top 75. My 3rd one is Jeremiah Love's running mate at Notre Dame. That's Jadarian Price. And number 4, I have Mike Washington Jr. of Arkansas. That's a name that people are getting to know based on things at the Senior Bowl. I'll take into account later on maybe some stuff that pops, but, I don't let, the Senior Bowl practices really, take over things that I've watched over, a couple of seasons on tape. And then to finish out my top 5 is Taylor's number 2 is Emmett Johnson in Nebraska for me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just, everybody is learning the name Jeremiah Love, just to talk a little about him. I mean, the production speaks for itself. 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns this past season, nearly 3,000 yards and 30 something touchdowns for his career, over 6.7, I think, yards per carry. If his pass protection development catches up to the rushing skill set, I mean, watch out. But, he creates chunk plays. He's got the elite burst. He's a high impact space back. I mean, imagine if he develops more even in the gap scheme, because we know he's really, fantastic in the zone. And that's probably his best fit. Outside wide zone systems, he's strong as an inside zone runner. Like I said, high gear accelerator. He knows how to stress a defense horizontally before he attacks it vertically. And he's able to convert creases into explosive plays. So, yeah, that's where I have on Jeremiah Love. Taylor, who do you want to talk about a little?
Yeah, well, first I'll answer the question from the chat. I think there was a question, right, about which running backs in this draft. Okay, who's the perfect running back that you would think Jeff Hafley and John Eric Sullivan would draft based on type of running backs? To be honest, I don't know. What's Achane's contract situation? Are they looking to move on from him? Because to me, it seems like, I mean, Devon Achane is in one of those tiers of running backs in the NFL, in my opinion, that is not looking to be replaced, right? He's up there with the James Cooks, the Jahmyr Gibbs, the Bijans of the world, the Saquon. Like, that is where I view Devon Achane. So I don't necessarily know that they would need to be looking at running back, especially with a young 21-year-old Ollie Gordon drafted last year as well. So it's more of just a change of pace type back, right? Like you would think. But I know from the history of the Packers and stuff, right? Because that's where Hafley came from. They like
and
bigger
Sullivan and John Eric Sullivan.
They like bigger running backs, and I know a guy inside Steve's top 5 we just talked about, and I actually wanted to talk about him a little bit more. So that's why I'll say Mike Washington Jr. He's 6 foot, 228 pounds. I know he was listed at 6'2", and honestly, for me, that was a little bit of a bit of a downgrade. Like 6'2" is almost too tall, too big to play running back, right? So when he measured in at 6 foot, 228, I think that knocked him into my top 10 when I was able to see his profile a little bit better to the NFL in terms of what he is actually height, weight, speed, rather than what he's listed, because he's listed 6'2", just a little bit too much and doesn't move as well as some of the other guys. But he is a big guy that can tote the rock, and I think he would be a good compliment to Achane.
And then the other thing I would add to that, Taylor, so very similar, like you pointed out, they have 2 running backs, relatively younger, under contract. One of my favorite running backs who's probably going to go day 3, a little bit later in the draft, is Roman Hemby from Indiana. Now, there's some injury issues with Hemby. In addition to that, he's a little bit older because he could have been in last year's draft. He chose to go back to school. But the cool thing about Hemby is that he profiles as a 3-down back, right? You don't have to take Hemby off the field on a passing down or in a specific situation. So to me, Hemby is actually the perfect round 5, round 6 running back for all 32 NFL teams, because he's going to be able to play in whichever scheme. He may not have a dominant trait, but when he gets on the field, he's going to do really good things. And, similar to Taylor's thing, like when Taylor was talking about Mike Washington and as the perfect back for Miami, I agree with Taylor. Here's the problem, right? Miami, I believe, is 3 third-round picks. I don't see Miami using a day 2 pick on a running back. So
yeah, I took a look. I took a look. Achane has 1 more year left. So unless they extend him, 2026 is his last year. And I mean, he's counting for $1 million on the cap, so I don't think anything changes.
I mean, it's okay to draft a running back. I just don't know
Yeah.
that Miami would be in a situation. They have 5 picks on day 1 and 2. I don't know that they would use one of those 5 on a running back. Now, if Mike Washington is there round 4, he's good again. Mike Washington would be a value for any team in round 4 because that's probably a full round below the grade that Taylor and Steve. Are you day 2 or day 3 on Washington?
I'm day 2 on Washington.
Right.
He's
So if he's there round 4, you're probably picking best player available, right?
Yeah.
Running backs may fall like that, but
he's a good fit. I mean, if for some reason something happened, depending on what John Eric Sullivan and Halfley want to do in Miami, I mean, Green Bay's thing has been, they've supplemented the zone blocking and they've been more gap. And I think that is where Washington excels, whereas, when I was talking Jeremiah Love, he's zone based more than he is gap. So I think Washington would be a good fit, for a team like the Dolphins, but I can't see them, doing it on the first 2 days with the, unless they really have a best player available philosophy. Yep. But, I think of the Dolphins with secondary and, maybe O-line and other things.
Yep. So, Brandon, I think the Texans are going to be one of the first 5 teams to draft a running back. A lot of times when they ask who are the top 5 running backs, I'm going to be like, who are the 5 teams that are going to draft a running back the earliest? The Texans, to me, are one of those 5. So I would love Katron Allen to the Texans, probably round 3, but maybe I could see round 4. Taylor, where are you on Katron Allen right now?
Katron Allen is just outside my top 5. He's actually my 6th ranked running back. So this is another person that I could see fitting into what the Dolphins want to do under this new regime. Like, they want to be physical. It's been talked about in all the press conferences. Like, he is a physical back. He is going to run downhill. He is not someone that's going to wiggle by you, make you miss in a phone booth, but he's putting his head down and he's going straight forward. And he's more athletic than I think, people are going to give him credit for. So when you watch it translate to the combine and the speed and the drills and things like that, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with what they're getting from Katron Allen. And quite simply, he outproduced Nick Singleton. I know I have Singleton ranked higher, but for this last year, Katron Allen was the better running back. He got awarded for it, whether conference awards, things like that. But he's a guy who kind of was always, mentioned as Nick Singleton's kind of running mate or his counterpart. I have them close in my rankings, and honestly, on the field, just with what they did in 2025, Katron Allen was the better running back. So I like him. I think he's physical. I just think Nick Singleton can be used as a weapon in the NFL, and I think that's why I have him a little bit higher. But Texans would be a great fit because I think they have a guy in Woody Marks that is that complementary piece that everyone knew they were going to be when they drafted him. But you can't be relying on Nick Chubb and Jawar Jordan as your 2 running backs to run between the tackles. So I think they need a guy like Allen for sure.
Yeah.
Steve, where are you on Katron Allen right now?
I'm exactly where Cha is. He's running back 6. He is just outside of my top 100. I have him at 6. I actually have Nick Singleton at 8. Both of them round 4, along with, you mentioned Roman Hemby before. Hemby comes up right after Singleton. But yeah, I mean, I like Allen, have him ranked a little bit higher. He's physical, he's tempo setting, he's got good downhill toughness, his contact balance is excellent, the workload, he's durable. I think, you're looking at a dependable early down, NFL back, right? One thing about a bunch of these guys that we're talking about is when you look at some, of the tape and some of the stats is, Katron Allen had something like nearly 60 missed tackles forced. You fixed the Texans O-line a little bit, especially on the inside, mostly for CJ Stroud, but, he's super elusive too. So, in 700, almost 800 yards that he's gotten after contact. So I think that would be a great fit.
Yeah. So, Joe, what do you think of Adam Randall from Clemson and Seth McGowan from Kentucky?
Yeah, so I'll start with Seth McGowan just because I have him ranked higher. He is my 20th ranked running back right now. As far as a grade for him, I have him in the sixth round grade on Seth McGowan. I do think he can get drafted on day 3. He's a good running back. I think he's going to improve his stock. I've been seeing some trending up reports from some of the bowl games and things like that, which helps as well. He's more of a power style back. And then I am actually not as high on Adam Randall. I have him down the list quite a ways, a little bit beyond 20, actually. More like an UDFA range for Randall. He's a converted wide receiver, but he wasn't very good at catching the ball at wide receiver, so they moved him to running back, and he still isn't very good at catching the ball. So I think that's kind of the thing with Randall that I'm kind of like, okay, well, maybe he can make an impact as a returner in the new kick return game. We've talked about this quite a bit on this channel, especially me and Steve, but where he can make an impact is probably as a playmaker of some kind. Whether that's running the ball, kick returning, something to that effect. I think that's more where I see Adam Randall.
Steve, anything you want to add on those two?
Yeah, I love this because Chaw and I are the reverse. I'm higher on Adam Randall, and I don't have a draftable grade on McGowan from Kentucky. But yeah, as far as Randall, he's reliable. In terms of his receiving usage. He's consistent as a chain mover. I've got a round 5 grade on him. I do have one running back ahead of him we could talk about later in round 5. But, he's developed really well. I know there was a lot of knocks on Clemson. This year, I think we all expected more than we got out of them, whether it was Cade Klubnik or, the D-line or pick your poison. But, I think he really developed within Clemson's offensive structure as a workload back. His usage was trending upward. The coaching staff leaned on him for early down stability in the red zone. And, he's definitely a back that I think can be trusted. Efficiency metrics, they show, a consistent forward momentum. His contact balance is good. Another guy that's good after contact. He's got good interior toughness, his breakaway rate. I think it's reflecting more of situational explosiveness. But yeah, compact downhill runner, keeps his pads where they should, thrives, when there's clear run lanes in the north and south. So, and he's got natural good hands, I think.
So, Steve, have you had a chance to talk about all of the running backs in your top 100?
Let's see. One, yeah, I brought up Jonah Coleman a little. I don't know if I did or not. Just outside of ranking, but I'll give you the 5 guys again in my 100. And so obviously Jeremiah Love, then Jonah Coleman, and number 3 for me. And this is where I spent a good chunk of the fall dancing around. And for number 3, I don't want to use the word settled on because I'm not settling, but for lack of better words, I'll say settle. I love Jadarian Price. Love's running mate out of Notre Dame. I love him for a variety of things, but, part of it is Chaw's fault with just what he adds in terms of special teams in the modern NFL return game. But, just great chunk play potential. Probably his biggest limitation is his pass protection, but he's a space accelerator. He's got sharp bursts. He can change directions. He's got good, vision, perimeter vision, and he wins. He could kill you with speed and leverage rather than that interior power. Again, ball security is okay. A spread motion-based offense, outside zone concepts, and then, of course, again, the return game. Man, I love this dude. I really do.
And then 4 and 5, you've had a chance to talk about as well.
Yeah, I think, we touched on Mike Washington out of Arkansas. Really loving what I'm hearing out of the Senior Bowl. So he's my number 4. And then Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, who Chaw talked about. He's my number 5.
Okay. And then, Chaw, have you had a chance to talk about everybody in your top 5 as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think a couple of things. Just my 2 and 3, I think we talked about at the beginning of this is Emmett Johnson is number 2, RB2, and Nick Singleton's RB3. It was kind of hard to get to that point. And I know I saw a question in the chat about Mark Fletcher, and I think it's relevant here because I brought it up before the college football playoff on this very podcast, we talked about it. And what did I say? I said, Mark Fletcher, why is nobody talking about him for RB2 in this class, right? Why is nobody talking about him? And then what happens? He goes out and he dominates. I mean, they lost the national championship, but he dominated in the playoff, especially in the semifinal game and the national championship. For me, after watching Emmett Johnson in tape in full, I still think I would have had Emmett Johnson as RB2 ahead of Fletcher. But from there, it's a legitimate conversation. It's with guys like Singleton, Coleman, Price, Allen. Like, those guys are so closely put together. It's whatever flavor you want. If you want someone that's just going to run downhill, be big, and fall forward, like, you're getting Mark Fletcher, and he's awesome, right? And Nick Singleton, more of an explosive weapon. They line him up in the slot. They give him jet sweeps. They pass the ball to him. He's a really good receiver. Jadarian Price has the special teams element as well, right? Jonah Coleman, you want 4 to 6 yards every single play, give the ball to Jonah Coleman. So there's a flavor of every single one of these running backs, and I think Mark Fletcher would have fit right in that tier.
Yeah. So, Anthony, put running backs in the chat that are in this draft class, not the ones that went back to school.
Well, to that point, Anthony, I'm glad
and,
you brought up LJ Martin, because I will tell you, if Justice Haynes, he just left Michigan, he's going to Georgia Tech. I'll tell you something. If Justice Haynes had declared, he'd be my running back number 2 in this class.
Yeah. So going back to the running backs in this class, so one of the things that I'd like to point out, right? So you can go to the YouTube channel, you can find the running back playlist. We've done a deep dive on like 48 running backs that are in this class, right? But there are not 48 draftable grades at running back. I don't even think there's 24. And I believe the yearly average is 22 running backs are taken each year. So kind of a down year for running backs. But the reason I want to point that out is after you get by like the 7 or 8 running backs that Stephen Shaw specifically spoke about, and then like I added Roman Hemby into the mix, it's about you're picking a guy. So like if you look at like Jamari Taylor from Virginia or Kavorian Barnes from TCU, you could have some people telling you undraftable grade and some people telling you day 3, and that's the nature of day 3 grades, right? The people aren't going to agree, but with Jamari Taylor, at one point he was leading the nation in rushing touchdowns. Yeah. Like, I don't know that he finished the year there, but he's having a reasonable week in Mobile. Taylor, between Barnes and Jamari Taylor, who do you have higher and why?
I have Jamari Taylor about twice as high. I have him inside my top 10. So or just outside my top 10, I believe. Hold on. Sort my thing. I have 2. I have the film, right? I look directly at the film, then I add the analytics, the production piece into it. He scored 7th highest in the production model in my model. So that's raising him up a little bit in the ranks, but he is my RB10 right now from Virginia. So I'm a big fan of Jamari Taylor. I think he does a lot of things well throughout the board. Like, he's balanced. He can fight forward for extra yards, but he's quick and he's elusive, and he's stacking good days at these bowl events and rising his name in that aspect as well. But when you watch the tape, you see it. You see the production. Like you said, he was leading the nation in rushing at one point. And he's just a really good player. So I like Jamari Taylor. And he's one of those guys that you can definitely get in round 4, round 5 that could be a contributor for your team. And I like him a little bit more than
Kavorian
Barnes, who's down there closer to. He's not draftable for me.
Yeah,
but
so Steve, Kalen Black or Jamarian Miller, who do you have graded higher?
I don't have a grade on Miller, but I do. I have both Indiana, backs. I'm higher on Hemby. I've got a round 4 on him, and I have a round 5 on Kalen Black. Just to go back, I do agree with Taylor. I have Jamari Taylor as a, early round 5, and I don't have a draftable grade on Kavorian Barnes.
So if we start looking at maybe some of the other running backs, like the ACC this year has a lot of running backs. So like there's Jamal Haynes and Desmond Reed. Steve, which of those guys do you have graded higher and why?
Let's take a look. I've got Jamal Haynes higher, but I do have a draftable grade on Desmond Reed of Pitt. Let me get Jamal. Yeah, versatile dual threat back, good receiving usage, consistent production, space play efficiency. I think, he does project as, a guy who's a modern rotational NFL running back. There's passing game value. There's flexibility. He could be deployed, across different offensive packages. He's just an efficient guy who, can contribute, smooth at accelerating. He's got good lateral agility. He's comfortable in space. I think, he keeps adequate interior toughness when he's finishing his runs. I think he's patient behind his blocks and he cuts pretty decisively. I do like his hands. I think his pass protection has improved over time. So, the speed thing, look, you can't coach speed. It is what it is, but but I'm higher on him.
Cool. And Taylor, where are you on Tyrion Stewart, the running back from Virginia Tech?
So the Virginia Tech running back, Tyrion Stewart, he did not get a draftable grade for me. He's down, but it's a really big tier that's pretty close. You mentioned Virginia. Obviously, I have Jamari Taylor inside my top 10, so I do have a draftable grade on him. For sure, 4th round grade for me. And then the other, I'll give you one better than Virginia Tech. Let's do Virginia Union. How about Curtis Allen, another running back? He's another guy that is just, dominated small school. It is what it is. Probably a guy that could, make a living on Sundays, whether it's playing special teams or something like that. He's another running back from the Virginia area that I would be looking out for as a preferred free agent or an undrafted signee.
Okay, so I'm looking at, somebody asked a question about fullbacks.
Yeah,
I would probably.
I'm hoping can we talk a little about the Navy guy, Eli Heidenreich?
Yeah,
because I do have a
Navy guy. CJ Donaldson may project as a fullback for some people.
See, I almost said CJ Donaldson for the Pack or for the Dolphins. Excuse me. Whenever we were asked about that, because he's a little bit bigger of a back, and he's one of the best pass protecting running backs in this class, and I think that's kind of the piece in that running back room that they're missing, right? Like Achane's not a pass blocker, not excelling at pass pro. Neither is Ollie Gordon, right? Even though he's big, that's not one of his strong suits. So you get a guy like CJ Donaldson in there, another big body, another athletic player, and then someone that can, be serviceable in pass pro, right? Like that's another element that they're missing. So that's another guy I'd look out for there.
Anybody else that you want to add to that fullback category, Steve?
No, for me, it's just Eli Heidenreich of Navy, compact, I guess he's a hybrid, you could call him, he's got reliable efficiency and downhill toughness and, functional receiving usage. But, he's been making a name for himself with, the All-Star game. So,
I think I'm more on, I think he can just play running back. Like, I don't think he needs to play fullback. He was the fastest on-field running back at the Shrine Bowl. Like, fastest on the field. Where you don't need to put him in fullback. Just give him the ball. You give him the ball. He can catch. He had a bunch of receptions. I think he can just play running back.
Here's why I do. There are very few positions that I do comps for. Because, in my own head, then I start looking for things that either are there or aren't there. So like I said, there aren't many positions that I do comps, but there are elements of his game that I just flash to Kyle Juszczyk of the 49ers. So that's where I stick with the fullback thing. Dude's a weapon, but I don't disagree with you on him.
I can jump into a couple other guys because I actually have 2 guys inside my top 8 that we haven't talked about yet. And we talked about, you mentioned all the ACC running backs. We haven't talked about Demon Claiborne yet. Demon Claiborne is my 7th ranked running back right now. Just turn on explosive. Like he does like to bounce it outside a little bit too much for my liking. But when you're that fast and you're that big and you can run around everybody, I get why you have that, thought in your head to do that sometimes. So Demon Claiborne is a guy that I just think, some NFL team, he kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of Sean Tucker in a little bit of a way. Like he was hitting home runs at Syracuse when he was in. Remember, he would have been drafted on early day 3, late day 2 had he not had that health issue. So Demon Claiborne is a guy that's just an explosive player, someone that I think is going to make an NFL team really happy, and he can hit some home runs in the backfield. And then my 8th ranked running back, and this is a guy that I know Steve has heard me talk about before. I've been talking about him since I wrote the Big 12 preview at the beginning of the season, but Dean Connors, running back from Houston, he is a receiving weapon. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, he is someone that is going to catch 60 passes in a season in the NFL as a running back. He's going to make some team very, very excited. He's a change of pace back. He's not going to be someone that totes the rock, although that was his role. So if you go watch the Houston tape compared to the Rice tape, right? He transferred from Rice to Houston, went off, by the way, in the revenge game when Houston played Rice and he was on Houston. He is explosive. He's a former track athlete, former track star. He won a ton of races in track when he was in high school and stuff like that. So he is an athletic specimen. He's just a good football player. He loves football. I mean, I looked at all the different Houston players that are going to the draft talk about Dean Connors. They talk about how much he loves football. They talk about how passionate he is. They talk about how it's his entire life. And this dude, you just look at him. Like, you just look at him, he's catching 40, 50, 60 balls, whatever it is. This is maybe more of a projection for fantasy football. If you play fantasy football, PPR, Dean Connors, you're not going to want to miss him. I have him graded highly in my model because I have running back archetypes and he falls under the receiving one. But hey, I've been on him for a while now. He has one of the most insane running back catches you'll ever see out of the highlight package this year. We had a one-handed touchdown catch over the middle of the field. So Dean Connors, just a gritty dude he's going to make an NFL roster. Just simple as that. I have him. I think he's going to be really productive as well.
Okay. And Shaw, have we now talked about every running back in your top 10?
Yes, we have. Yeah. That was the last one.
Okay. And then Steve, is there any running back in your top 10 that we have not spent a lot of time on?
Yeah, I'll give you 2. The first is, hope I don't mispronounce his name, but when will I not do that? Chip Trayanum. I don't know how to say it. Out of Toledo. Trayanum. Maybe that's it. Anyway, He's actually low-key, Toledo, right? Everybody's focusing on Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, great safety out of there. Well, don't ignore this dude on the offense. He's really a no-frills, downhill, interior runner. He's had good production. He does have 3-down functional ability, and he's physically reliable, and he just thrives between, the tackles. Again, I don't see him as a 3-down. I think, and given the league, he's a rotational piece. But his value, it definitely comes from being tough and decisive. And it's about his coaches being able to trust him rather than anything with that dreaded elite word, athletic traits. He operated as Toledo's primary back, the offensive stabilizer. He helped them sustain drives and physical tone setting. But yeah, he's one of the guys that I didn't talk about. And there is one more in my top 10. I won't bother bringing up Claiborne because, Chaw, you did a great job. But South Alabama, Kentrell Bullock, he's the last one that we haven't spoken about in my top 10. Just a physical downhill runner. He's consistent with his contact creation. Good gap scheme, runner. Really thrives. The more touches you give him, the better he is. So he definitely needs the volume. So, he may not be the 3rd down guy, but an early down rotational. There is some short yardage value. The workload durability is there. He also, he became South Alabama's primary interior back. He's centered around between the tackles volume and controlling the clock. So that was the last one. Do you have anything on either of those two, either Chip or Bullock?
Yeah, I do. So Chip's real name is Diamante. I just thought that people should know that. He's going to be listed as Chip everywhere, but I just was looking him up right now, and I do have that. Right now, I have him as my RB19, and I have Kentrell Bullock as my RB17. So with Jamarion Miller, Jam Miller squeezed right in between there. So yeah, I mean these guys are, I have them more. Trayanum is interesting because he's one of those guys that I think gets drafted in round 7, but he's going to play special teams. He's a former linebacker, right? He moved over to running back. He's a big body. Like if he's going to make a roster, it's going to be in that George Halani role. I've talked about it several times where you draft a guy like Damian Martinez, you think can come in and take that third running back spot. This undrafted free agent off the street just whoops your tail on special teams and in situational packages and in pass pro and things like that. All of a sudden, you're drafted, you're out of a job because you got beat out by someone that does all these things better. Well, there's an abundance of running backs. As I've told you pre-show, I think I have 45 guys listed on this sheet. They're not all draftable, which means that 3-4 of these guys are going to be in the same camp, right? That's not guaranteed that a round 6, round 7 pick is going to get, make the roster over someone that's not. So it's worth looking at all of these guys and what they can do situationally to make rosters. So Chip is a guy I think can play special teams. Bullock is a little bit more of your typical running back, a little bit bigger back trying to, get between the tackles and get downhill. But that's what I have on those two, both inside my top 20, just towards the back end of that.
Okay. Let's shift gears here a little bit. So I got a pretty good feel for each of your top 10s, right? I may not remember them in order, but I have a good feel. Let's go through some of the top running backs and you guys list their dominant trait and think of a dominant trait. The way I will define it is usually like when we do a scouting report on a player at any position, but specifically running backs, if a running back is going to win in the NFL, they need to have something that they can rely on. It's a dominant trait. It is something that when, let's say the chips are down and the pressure's on, that running back is going to be able to do that better than the defense can stop it. So every running back to succeed at the NFL level is going to need a dominant trait. Steve, what do you think the dominant trait for Jeremiah Love is?
Oh man, where do I start? Okay. You know what? I'll just take the easy way out. Just his burst. I think his burst is elite. Yeah. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Cha, what about you?
Yeah, I can add a little because I think it's the burst, but I think it's the patience in which he gets to the burst, right? Like he waits until he sees the hole and then he explodes through it rather than, running too fast towards the hole before it's open, but he's really patient. I think patience would be my answer and getting to that burst, just how he gets to the line of scrimmage and through the line of scrimmage. Yeah, he's very, very, very good at that.
Okay, and then Cha, next running back, Jonah Coleman. What is Jonah Coleman's dominant trait?
Yeah, I have him graded. He has the highest grade actually of any of my running backs for contact balance. I talked about you want 4 to 6 yards from your running back. I think just staying balanced while not necessarily breaking tackles, but even if he's wrapped up, he finds a way to contort his body and fall forward and get that extra 1.5 yards. And then that can be so critical in big games, especially when you get to the playoffs of the NFL and things like that. And I think that's where he's going to make a lot of his money. For an offense, but I think contact balance is just, he's one of the best in the class at that.
Okay. Steve, how about you? Dominant trait for Jonah Coleman.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. What am I going to say for him? Because sometimes Cha has a way of stealing words from me.
It's okay. It's okay.
Finishing. No. I think it's good to have different. His finishing ability, I think, is what I'm going to say for him. Yeah, consistent finishing ability.
Emmett Johnson, what do you think his dominant trait is?
Dude's just good. You know what? I think he's a multi-purpose weapon, right? Rather than just your average traditional volume runner. I think you ask him to do something and he will do it regardless of what it is, because, he expanded from that rotational space back into being the featured efficiency runner. So yeah, multi-purpose is what I'll say for him.
Taylor, how about you? What do you think Emmett Johnson's dominant trait is?
And see, this is where I've seen nobody talking about this. I think his dominant trait is in the receiving game. I really do. I mean, he's a guy that he had 46 catches this last year, 39 the year before. He's someone that can be deployed and utilized in the pass game, up there with anybody in this class, in my opinion. My comp for Emmett Johnson and why I think I have him as my RB2 is my comp for him is Austin Eckler. Like, he is just one of those guys that can take the ball and he's going to run. He's going to run. He gets to the spot quick and he falls forward quick and he makes people miss while also powering through people. Like, Austin Eckler is the same way. Like, he kind of runs a little top heavy. You don't really think of them as like a bruising back. You don't think of them as like super elusive, but when it all comes together and it's on the football field, you see it with your eyes and it's like, oh, wow. Emmett Johnson's making plays. Like, same thing was my comp for Emmett Johnson with Austin Eckler, but I couldn't unsee it when I was watching it. And that's why I think the receiving game for Emmett Johnson is just so much better than people have talked about when I've heard, analysis about him.
Okay, so Steve, a running back we haven't mentioned yet, Robert Henry of UTSA. What do you think his dominant trait is?
How he handles contact, I would say. I mean, he's got great downhill burst, and well, you know what? He thrives when there's space and momentum. So I'll just keep it simple and say big playability. I mean, he's an explosive guy, and he's very efficient. But the way he creates contact is really good. But big playability, I'll say for him.
Good. Do you want to comment on that, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit. To have success in the NFL, you have to have a dominant trait. And I don't know if this is a cop-out answer, but I don't know that he has one, right? I don't know that he's one of those guys that we're talking about in the top 10, 12 guys that have elite traits, right? Like, he's kind of where my RB23. It's like, do I really think my RB23 has elite traits, like top of the class traits? Like, honestly, not really. So I have him pretty balanced across the board in all of my film grades. So I don't know if I could give you an answer on that one. I truly don't know if he has an elite trait.
But he does have nearly 7 yards per carry. He is up there.
Yeah, and I get that. I would like to pump the brakes on that because I think competition level does matter a little bit, right? A little bit, and especially in college, rushing yards per carry, Ashton Genty. But you get my point. Like, I think that's kind of where, and that's why I have him down a little bit. Like, if he had that same production and everything like that, and he was at Kentucky where Seth McGowan was, like, oh my gosh, okay, we're talking about a top 10, top 12 running back in the class.
Yep. And I also think, like, Taylor, I love your point that not every running back is going to have a dominant trait. And I think that's part of when you're evaluating running backs and looking for, like, who's going to be drafted in round 6 or 7. If a scout or a GM believes that the player has a dominant trait at running back, they're more likely to be drafted, because if they don't necessarily have a dominant trait, you're going to be able to find a lot of those types of guys as a UDFA. You can make the team as a special teams guy or something to that effect. Jadarian Price, Shaw, what do you think Jadarian Price's dominant trait is?
Yeah, this one's easy for me. It is his vision. The way he follows his blocks, you can see it on kick returns, the way he returns kicks, like he gets 30, 40 yards at a time, returns for touchdowns, things like that. The way he sees the field with the ball in his hand is second to almost none in this class.
Steve, what about you on Jadarian Price? Dominant trait.
Yeah, that's got to be it. I mean, he's a chess piece, right? He's so dangerous on, angle routes or screens or whatever. But yeah, it's got to be his, his vision. And he's just so smooth in the way he changes direction. And he's got good hands, natural hands catcher. Yeah.
Okay. So Steve, Katron Allen, what do you think Katron Allen's dominant trait is?
That I like him better than Nick Singleton. No, that's just a knife in Shaw. He's a power runner. I just think he can wear you down. And I think that's a dominant trait. He could sustain drives and just wear you the hell down.
Yeah.
Shaw, how about you on Katron Allen?
I think his elite trait is that he is not going to be fun to tackle, even for other grown men. Like he said wear you down, like that consistency just with how he runs hard, runs over you. I would say power, I guess, in that aspect in terms of the dominant trait, but it's going to be not fun for opposing defenders to tackle Kaytron Allen.
Okay. And Shaw, his teammate is Nick Singleton. What do you think Nick Singleton's dominant trait is?
Yeah, so I kind of talked about this with Emmett Johnson as well, but so I won't go directly receiving, but I think with the ball in his hand as a pure offensive weapon, I think that is where Nick Singleton shines above the rest of the running back classes. Like wherever you get him the ball, it doesn't really matter. Like I said earlier, he gets jet sweeps. If you watch the film, he's getting handoffs, he's getting tosses, he's getting, they're manufacturing the way they're throwing him screens, things like that. They're trying to get him the ball because they know as soon as he's got the ball in his hands, it's electric. So I'm going to go with just, I don't know. He to give you some context for my rankings, like I have an upside category, right? Him and Jeremiah Love are the only two backs in this class that I gave a perfect score on upside. Like I think Nick Singleton, it is a little bit of a projecting, right? But it's because the offense that they have at Penn State with their quarterback questions, the issues, we know how this season went. Kaytron Allen, obviously, we talked about it earlier in the podcast, but he was a better running back than Nick Singleton was on the field. That hasn't historically been true the last couple of years, right? Nick Singleton kind of took a step back. But I think it was more about the offense, what was going on there. The player, the skills, the athleticism, I mean, that is still there for Nick Singleton. That's not going away. And I think an NFL team, an NFL coordinator can take that, mold it, use it, and honestly wreak havoc on the league with his speed and size. Like there's just a really rare combo of speed and size.
So, Steve, do you think Nick Singleton runs the fastest 40 time of any of the major running backs of this draft class?
He might. He might. I mean, if you asked me the question on, that we've been doing, I would have said size, speed, and power for him. I don't know. I guess it's important. I don't put a lot of stock, what's his name? Mike Washington's agent, I think, has been talking a little smack down in Mobile, saying, he's going to run fast. I don't know about that, but yeah, you know what? He might be the fastest.
Okay. I'm gonna go Demon Claiborne if I gotta throw my hat in the ring.
Ooh, you're right.
I think Demon Claiborne is gonna run the fastest. I mean, just from what I watched,
I don't know why I always forget about him. I always do. I don't know why, but I do.
I told Steve that I stayed up until 3 a.m. last night and I did work on 45 running backs, and nobody's moving like Demon Claiborne. Nobody's moving like Demon. Nobody's moving like Demon. Well, maybe JQ Brown from Millersville when he's facing D2 competition. But that's
you're awesome, man. You don't leave a stone unturned, man. I love that.
Anytime we can drop new names on a podcast, Chaw, like I'm all for it. The next running back I was actually going to ask about was Mike Washington. So, Chaw, you brought him up. What is Mike Washington's dominant trait?
I'll jump ahead.
Yeah.
While you're thinking. Violent.
You take
violent.
That.
He's violent. Violent downhill runner.
Violent in the way that Caleb Johnson is violent, or violent in the way that
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, not to use it like one of the best.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
You see what I'm saying? That's what people said about
Skittles, but yeah,
that's what people said about Caleb Johnson last year too. Just a bigger body. Is he really that violent though? And then you get to the NFL and it's a different story. I'm just questioning here. I'm not questioning your Mike Washington. He's in my top 10. It's just I don't know if I would say. He's just like one of those guys, just like, man, you can't teach 230 pounds running at your face. Like, you just can't teach that. So I think, I guess that would be my dominant trait for him.
Okay. And I'm looking down the list. Roman Hemby. What do you think his dominant trait is, Steve?
His, probably his straight line acceleration. Yeah.
Taylor, how about you on Roman Hemby?
See, I just don't know if I can get there. He's one of those guys where it was pretty even across the board film grade, like middle, consistent, solid, all the way across the board. He's my RB13. I think that's where I'm gonna have to draw the line. I don't really see really below Hemby. I don't see a lot of guys on my list that have elite traits left. Like I think I can cut the list for me at 12. That
See,
I
and
feel like
so,
have elite traits.
So, Chaw, you got to my point. That I was building to something,
Yeah.
but that was what I was building to, right? So, ask yourself if your team needs a running back, go back and listen to that dominant trait aspect. You're basically trying to get one of the top 10 to 11 running backs in the class, and then, like, I would love Hemby. Like, I am going to pick up Hemby in every single one of my dynasty leagues. Now, Hemby is not going to come in and be a starter immediately. But when he gets his chance, there's no reason to take him off the field. He'll be able to be on the field, passing downs, running downs, short yardage, long yard, right? No matter the situation, Hemby will be able to be on the field. He doesn't necessarily have a dominant trait that's going to get him drafted high.
Can I tell you who I see when I watch him and tell the people why they should not be scared of Roman Hemby because we're saying he doesn't have an elite trait? When I watch Roman Hemby, I see a lot of Kyren Williams in the way that he is patient as he runs, and it's always productive. Like, say what you want, Kyren Williams, he's not the most athletic. What do you run, like a 4.7 40? Like, people talked about it. They knocked him for it. They dropped him for it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if I think Hemby's going to run faster than that. But my point is saying, like, he runs between the tackles well. He runs outside the tackles well. He catches the ball well. He moves forward. He moves the offense forward. And what are you doing as a running back if not moving the offense forward? That's the entire goal, right? So I'm with you, Jim. I think he is just one of the most consistent guys in the class, not having one of those elite traits. That's why he's RB13 and not RB9 or RB7. You know what I mean for me? So that's kind of where I'm at on Roman Hemby.
Where are you, just out of curiosity, like with the two Indiana running backs, both Hemby and Black, which one are you higher on?
I'm higher on Hemby right now.
Yeah.
But
Same.
I need to go
Yep.
rewatch some tape. But
Yep.
I'm higher on Hemby. I just think the consistency, the just what I just described, basically just moving the offense forward. I do think Black, I think he to the naked eye, when we were watching the college football playoff and stuff, you turn on the game and you're like, oh, who's number 8 coming in when he checks in, right? Like, he gives them a little added burst, but I see that more as like kind of similar to like the way Isaiah Pacheco is deployed in the NFL, right? Like they kind of have that thing where they look like they're moving really fast and really hard, but it's a lot of because they're like their body.
I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think, as a perimeter runner, is where I think my eye catches Kalen Black, because there's some explosiveness there, whereas Hemby is a little more well-rounded,
Yep.
And
then one other point that I'd like to make on running backs, right? I mean, Taylor, Steve, you guys did a great job with scouting reports. I think running back is a position which defines the aspect of the scouting report. Is you have to remember, just because you haven't seen it on film doesn't mean they can't do it.
It's a good point.
Right? 'Cause they're going to do what their coach asked them to do. So if you didn't know, I'm a Bills fan. So if anybody watched, right? When James Cook was drafted, he was drafted to be a third down back. Brandon Beane spent a second-round pick on a third down back. It was freely admitted, like when they were going through Cook's contract negotiations after year 3. Brandon Beane said, this was interesting, he says, because we thought he was a third down back and he's turned into an every down back, right? He wasn't the player that Buffalo thought he was, he wasn't the player Buffalo thought he was. He was better, but he had to have the opportunity to do it. Georgia didn't ask him to do those things at the college level. So just be aware of that, right? So that's why you want to focus a lot on like dominant traits. And just because that running back didn't pass block in college doesn't mean that they can't do it. It means that we have to see if they can, for example.
Absolutely. Yep. I got to that point, and I think that's where the elite trait is kind of my tier, like my RB11, RB12, and RB14. Jaden Nixon from UCF, Rodney Hammond Jr. from Sacramento State, and Damon Bankston. All of those guys project as primary kick returners. All of those guys have speed or agility as their elite trait, and it will get them on special teams. That's why I have them ranked a little bit ahead of guys like CJ Donaldson, Le'Veon Moss, Jam Miller. I have those guys. I have the special teams factored into that. And because they're so much faster, so much more athletic, able to have the ball in space and make huge plays, I think that is why those guys rank inside the top 15 for me over some of these other guys that are more between the tackles runners. Because just to your point, we've talked about it a lot. It's like you need to have someone that can make the roster, right? You're drafting players that you think are going to make the roster. So teams like the Dolphins, we talked about at the beginning, they have a spot for one running back, right? They still have Jalen Wright, who we don't know how the new administration likes. Like, right, we know that they have a plethora of other needs, and if I'm not mistaken, they don't have all of their picks. Potentially, I'm not sure. Either way,
they have a lot on. They have 5 picks in the top 100.
Okay,
Yeah, because I know they have Philly's 3rd rounder because of the Jalen Phillips trade.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, regardless, they have much, in my opinion, much bigger needs than running back right now. So, like, that's a team where maybe you get a guy in the 7th round because you think he can help you on the return game. That's about it. But that's what I see from that new regime in Miami as an example. So some of these guys are going to be pushed up, and you might be like, who the hell is Rodney Hammond Jr. from Sacramento State? Well, he's one of the best kick returners in FCS. He's just one of those guys that I think is just going to make it a roster as a 3rd running back. So I wanted to throw those names out there too, just because, you can't in today's NFL with the new kick return rule. And I know it's only been 1 season, but I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. Like, it is changing the game. It has changed the game, and it will change the game. So you have to factor that into your scouting reports now. And I definitely have. So.
Yep.
I think
there's a couple of names that I'm going to throw out before we close up. Just like, so one is Lincoln Paré of Texas State. See, Shaw, you're not the only one that could pull these obscure schools. Just a good rhythm runner. Where I think, he's good is he's just got natural hands. He's comfortable on swings and checks downs and the short routes. And, he does create a bit of a mismatch against linebackers, and I really like him as a blocker. He's very willing. The same could be said. I do want to give a shout out to Barika Kapinu of North Dakota State. Another guy, who's had a multi-year trend of production going up. What?
I knew that was coming. I knew we were talking about him.
Compact power runner. He's got good pad level. And he's another one. He just wants, he's physical with the pass blocking. That's where he really wants to develop more and more. He's a willing blocker, and he's angry about it too. So I wanted to give those 2 guys shout outs before we wrap things up.
And I think back to Taylor's point about the kickoff rule changing things. So I believe we're going to see more teams carry 4 running backs, or they're going to look for that 4th running back who could also play wide receiver. So let's say like a Joshua Cameron, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like he's a wide receiver, but he's a bigger wide receiver, because those types of players, the big players that can run, are meaning you can run and you can run through a tackle specifically, are the players that will favor the new kickoff rule. The longest kickoff returns usually had a broken tackle. It wasn't that you hit a wedge and exploded through it. It's that you had to break through an arm tackle to get to the next level of the return. So, Taylor, I think we're going to see like a bias towards the sides of the running back, maybe seeing a 4th running back added to rosters. I mean, maybe Buffalo's the minority, but Buffalo only carries 3 running backs. I don't know if other teams are carrying 4.
Again, though,
the Jets had 4.
When you have
the Jets had 4.
When you have an RB3 that's as good as Ty Johnson, though, right?
Yes.
Y'all got to hurt me. Y'all
But,
gotta
like,
hurt me.
well, it's like, yeah, I mean, the Broncos carry 4 running backs most of the time. Sometimes they carry 3, it just depends. But like Tyler Beatty, like he's the same kind of role as Ty Johnson. So if you have that guy that can do that and play special teams and return and be on the field for the 2-minute, 4-minute drill, whatever it is, that's when you can carry 3. It's when you have to do those things where, like I just mentioned Caleb Johnson earlier. Like Caleb Johnson, they put him on kick return. What happened? He fumbled. It was terrible. It didn't look good. Special teams coach is in Tampa Bay now. So it's like, and then that's not why he left on his own accord. But Caleb Johnson is just another example of where he's a bigger body, and it's like, oh, well, you have to play special teams nowadays, or else you not get to see the field. So,
well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Steve, you want to let everybody know about your Jets podcast and the Twitter spaces that you do?
Yeah. So all the info is right there. Find me on Twitter or YouTube. It's at Steve_NFL. And as Jim said, that's the starting point for all the content, whether the blog or on the weekends, weekend mornings, bright and early, run spaces on Twitter called The Huddle. It is, we average about 200 listeners. I'd probably say a little more than a quarter are Jets fans because, misery loves company. But bad news is good for business, and also on YouTube, where I get great contributions, and help from draft professors like Cha and other guys that you'll see right here on the channel.
Cha.
Yeah, you can find me right here, 7 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. For the most part, unless sometimes we have to fill in. Life still happens, but this is my one show a week that I do. I don't do much in terms of the live shows, but you can go to my blog, footballwithcha.com. There's a lot of good content on there, specifically about the kick returners. I know we talked about that quite often, but most of my takes are on X, so just go follow me over there, and we'll stay connected.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is thank Stephen Shaw for being here, right? So every Thursday at 7, we're going to be here. We're going to be discussing the draft next week. I believe we're doing interior defensive line. We're going to go through their grades, what their boards are. We're going to do a similar format. We want you to know who the player names are and about where they are on the board. Bad news for you, not a great defensive tackle class. Good news, we're still covering it next week. So
I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I've only graded 6, and they're all good.
Mm-hmm.
They're all good.
Okay. Well, I look forward to finding out what the rest of them were next week.
Can't wait.
So also want to let everybody know, Draft Professor, every Friday, we do a group mock draft. So we have 32 people picking for 32 teams, and we do it live on a podcast. We want you, the listener, to draft for your team. And then you will hear us talk about your picks on the podcast. To draft for your team, follow Draft Professor on X and look at the pinned post. So the pinned post is the link to that week's podcast. There's a sign up underneath it. Just throw your name into the Twitter chat, and then I will converse with you a little bit to make sure that you know what time the podcast is. Hint, 7 p.m. Eastern. How to draft. Hint, type it into the text of the podcast. But making sure that you understand that, and then we're going to have a lot of fun because you can comment. Like if you want Emmanuel McNeil Warren and you thought he was going to be there in round 3, bad news, the Jets want him in round 2. I'm just saying, like, the Jets need a safety. So, but those types of things will happen. We'll have those conversations in the chat. We'll have those types of conversations on the podcast. We will do 100 picks in 150 minutes. So you're going to get to hear about a lot of players, and you're going to get to hear them very quickly, just one after another. When they're off the board, you're going to get kind of the quick analysis, and great way to learn about the draft class. So again, go to the Draft Professor Twitter page, give us a follow, comment on the pinned post. You can mock draft for your team. And we truly appreciate all of you guys that are here. So like Anthony, thanks for stopping by and keeping the chat going. Brandon, our favorite Texans fan, great to see you. Steve, thanks for filling in with the chat. JT, thanks for stopping by. So for the 110 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Steve, Chaw, myself, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being a Draft Professor fanatic. We will see you on a podcast again in 1 hour.